Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're joined with a partner from Databricks. They're one of the leading and rapidly emerging AI and data companies. Joined by Arun Palumapati from Databricks. He's a senior staff security field engineer. Thanks for joining us, Arun.
Nice to meet you, Willy. Nice to join and have this conversation.
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. So it's been an interesting 18 months, couple years now, with the explosion of popular use of AI. I know you guys have been at it for a while, but it seems like, at least in the last year, the companies are really racing to deploy AI because the benefits are so clear in many cases. What do you think needs to happen for security to keep pace with all this rapid use of AI?
That's a great question, Willy. Databricks being data and AI company, and what we provide to our customers is data intelligence platform, which is used by over 10,000 customers of ours. And our customers been doing data and AI for much longer than what the rest of the world actually started to realize with Gen AI and Gen AI dominating the news lately. So with that, our customers, a cohort of our customers, are very familiar with general ML capabilities, data science capabilities. But you are right, with the advent of Gen AI and ChatGPT and what happened in the last 18 months, majority of our customers and organizations are started using AI as part of their enterprise, and they're leveraging Databricks. And going back to your question, security teams have seen a lot of shifts in general in their careers, and enterprises have seen this through migration from on-prem to cloud. That is a huge shift for security teams. And then they had seen what happens with SaaS and adoption of SaaS platforms. So they have the muscle memory of adapting change. But what makes this AI shift different is that the primitives of AI are a bit nuanced and different compared to what the security teams are familiar with when it comes to cloud migration and SaaS. For example, if you talk about network security, security teams are very familiar with what that entails with their experience from on-prem. And then when they moved into cloud, they had to adapt to cloud primitives of network security. Similar with SaaS, what that means from their adoption of that specific primitive for network, how they need to integrate with SaaS platforms in the shared responsibility model. So security teams were very quick to leverage their existing knowledge. But when it comes to AI, what happened is that the primitives of AI, what does it mean for my enterprise to use AI, and what does it mean as a security team that I need to do, has a lot of consequences, and their knowledge and the understanding of the terminology to start with the data science, and what does it mean by training data? What is a model? Is that code, or is that something else? And when, as a security persona, with whom I should be working in my organization, who is data scientist, which organization they sit in, who is my governance officer, how do I work with those teams to make sure the governance policies are set right? So those are the types of questions the security teams need to quickly get familiar with. And to answer your question, there are multifaceted approaches enterprises are taking. They are retraining their security teams. They are making the rest of the organization how to approach these security teams with data and AI solutions and apps that they're building. Things like we as a Databricks team, we run workshops to make our customers familiar with about the security around data and AI.
All right, very, very interesting. And I imagine that Databricks customers are probably generally more sophisticated than the average company that's just starting to maybe use a GTP service, GPT, excuse me. But it is all very interesting that there are new players involved as you talk to the data scientists, the line of business owners. There also seems to be an imperative with many businesses to go fast because they have to be competitive. And we hear from the security side a lot of AppSec, more traditional security teams that are having to get up to speed quickly. And it's an interesting dynamic, maybe because it's gone from experiments to production so quickly. You seeing the same type of dynamic?
Exactly. In the past, when we talk about data science and statistics, it used to be a laptop-based data science. It used to be narrow, and as I said, it used to be experimentation. When applied in production, it used to be in a narrow set of cases. It used to be something producing a PDF file of as a report from data science. But what we are seeing now is AI is becoming part of the enterprise software stack. So there are downstream implications, there are upstream implications of AI becoming pervasive across the enterprise. It is enterprise software, and it needs to be treated like an enterprise software by enterprises and security teams of those enterprises.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a good way to put it. Now, I know that Databricks has made a particular commitment to security. You've developed your own security framework. We'll talk about that in a minute, DASF. But can you maybe give us at a high level, what are some of the specific security concerns as a whole that you feel like, that's, pushed you to partner with companies like ours and others?
Yeah, for sure. So when you take the journey of AI in a given enterprise, there are multiple journeys. But if you take a stab at typical enterprise, customers when they start adopting AI, first they need to make sure they have the data that is necessary, right, for basically taking advantage of the AI. If you take a step back and think about what is available for customers, there are frontier models. Those frontier models are good for doing general intelligence. Example, how do I, write and improve grammar in my email, right? So that can be a simple help that you can get as an assistant. Or if I want to write a proposal, you can get some kind of help. That is fine, but that is not going to help and move the needle, as you mentioned earlier, to be competitive for the enterprises. They need to have data intelligence combined with that AI to get the value of the AI by the enterprises. What that means for organizations is that they need to put their data, which is their most important asset that they have, in front of the AI. So in that process, these organizations need to take the data, either build their traditional predictive ML applications, or use the data to fine tune an existing model that they would be leveraging, or prompt engineer with the data that they have with some of the models that are available as SaaS. So when you take these applications, right, with the value that they want to get, there are different ways of deploying AI. So we kind of collected the different ways of deploying AI, and then with those use cases, first customers need to think about security of the data that they are putting in front of the AI, right, broadly. So how will my data be used if I send this data to a frontier model or a SaaS model? Would you log my data? Would you train on my data? If I bring in a model from something like Hugging Face, which happen to have 1 million plus models, is there a supply chain concern that I have? Is there a backdoor attack that I should be concerned about, right? So as I bring that model into my enterprise, I need to be aware of the potential risks in malicious intent of those models. How do I apply that to my AI journey? How would I leverage the existing knowledge that I have, but the tooling that I need to scan these models? And then at the end, once I deploy this model, do I have enough protections to my model serving interface, right? How would the model be exposing to my internal employees that are intended to use this for their applications versus some malicious user maybe trying to leverage this API that my model is exposing to and maybe exfiltrate some data, right? So those are some of the examples of ways the customers are, some of the concerns that the customers have to kind of, reason about and think about before they leverage these tools and techniques that are available for for their organization.
Interesting. Now, I'm interesting you mentioned Hugging Face. I know it's wildly popular, over 1 million models and malware there, inevitably. But one thing we hear from our customers, now maybe they're more on the security side, but they don't know all the AI assets that are being used. And is that something now with your platform, you provide a ML ops platform for managing all of this, but is that, I imagine people downloading many different models to experiment and try things out. Is that an issue where they get kind of sprawl of AI assets?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we'll get into Databricks AI security framework in a bit, but taking a step back and what we generally offer as part of our platform is that mechanism for organizations to manage their models instead of something called Unity Catalog with support with ML Flow. So organizations should be, if they're practicing, their Databricks data and AI platform, as recommended, they should be registering these models and then have a owner who actually is going to use this model for a specific use case, and then attribute around these models and documentation that is necessary for that. But the problem is there's always the shadow AI, right? Like, are they practicing AI only on Databricks? In that case, you can easily see with what models are being used inside of Databricks data and AI platform by going to their Unity catalog and then look at those and set with proper access control set up. But there is a lot of AI happening in an enterprise where they may or may not be aware of where are all the models and who is using what data with those models, and how are those apps being integrated in on top of these models, right? So that's definitely something that we try to educate through Databricks data and AI security framework.
Okay, great. So let's talk about that, the DASF. And I know there's a new version coming out soon, but can you give us the medium level of what's included and what's significant there?
Yeah. So in the beginning, you asked a great question around, what should security teams do given the exciting value of AI, but at the same time concerns around security, right? So we took a step back and knowing where the security teams are, we did a lot of workshops with various CISO organizations with around United States and everywhere else. We spoke to close to 200 plus CISOs. In that process, what we realized is there is a need for actually understanding what AI is and how these organizations should think about. So we built a map with that. So what we wanted to help these organizations is to understand different components of AI system, not just the model, right? So once they know what an AI looks like and what are different components, now you can think about who owns that part of that AI system, and in each of these components, what are different risks. So we threat modeled AI, and then we said, in a given component, here are all the risks that are possible or potential that you should be thinking about. And based on how you deploy AI, right, as I mentioned, some of these risks may or may not apply to you. So you need to know how you are using AI. And then what we did was with Databricks AI security framework, we leveraged existing standards and then frameworks that are out there like MITRE Atlas, WASP LLM Top 10, and we have NIST RMF, UAI Act, High Trust. We leverage all those standards when it comes to risks, and then we put those risks and catalog them. The ones those organizations may have missed, we also put those into that risk catalog, and then we built across these 12 components. We build this risk set, right? So now that we threat model and help place them on a map, now security teams can think about, I need some controls, right? So we built a control set in the Databricks AI security framework, and then we give them a very generic. It doesn't need to be Databricks as a platform. If you're leveraging, DIY platform, or if you're leveraging another vendor solution stack, you should expect from those platforms that, hey, given those risks, do I have these controls in place, right? And do those controls apply to me? And who owns and who is responsible and who is going to be implementing these in a given in my enterprise? So you can assign those to these people. So with Databricks AI security framework, what we are providing to both our customers and in general to the community is that, hey, there is a map here and there is a framework that you can use to narrow your set of risks that you should be thinking about based on how you are leveraging AI. And here are the controls. And by the way, if you happen to be a Databricks customer, here is the documentation for deploying those controls, right? So with that, customers have an opportunity to follow a roadmap, and the security teams can work within their enterprise to kind of work with the right set of people, because we call out those specific terms in a given general organization, like starting with your data governance organization, your lines of business and policy and legal, different people, and then you are working as a team in a collaborative way to basically produce an AI system, not just a model, AI system that is resilient to these risks that we talked about earlier.
Sure, and yeah, we certainly agree, and it's impressive that as a data company, you've built this security framework and much needed. Similarly, with our product, we've integrated with DASF as well as LLM, or the OWASP Top 10 for LLMs and a few other frameworks. But I think you have really gotten ahead of this, and we're very happy to leverage that and provide automation around it and tracking and all those things.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for leveraging the framework, and thanks for helping our mutual customers.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's in both of our interests, absolutely, to make sure it's secure. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of scanning models for security? Both pre-deployment and during deployment.
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned earlier, in a model zoo, right? There is a lot of work that is done, and there is definitely value there. Be Hugging Face or other model zoos that are out there. And given the cost of training and the skills that are necessary to build your own model, you would be always basically looking for ways to leverage existing models, right? But as you bring those models and try to incorporate your data to bring the data intelligence out of that model, right? You may be at risk of exposing your data to potentially a malicious intent model, which we call in supply chain attack or backdoor model, right? So and these models are always changing, and you may want to bring most recent model. So first you need, as part of your MLSecOps, right? As part of that process, you need to first, as in a day zero, when you bring that model, you need to scan them to see if there is potentially any malicious intent in them. Before even you do that, you need to look from as you kind of potentially skim through and select a model. You need to look for if those models are coming from a reputable organization by looking at the model card and making sure you are taking advantage of right model. But even then, some of these models may mimic to be coming from a reputable organization, and it's incumbent upon you to kind of make sure you scan those models, and then you are routinely looking for anything new discovered, because there is always new vectors that are discovered by organizations like AppSoc, with your research and intelligence that you're building into your scanners, and you want to make sure those are vetted through as you deploy and continue to use those models, because if something is new is discovered, you want to know about those and then reduce the blast radius or reduce the more risk to data exfiltration from your data sets, which happen to be the most important asset of your organization. We at Databricks also, in general, provide many controls, but model scanning is one of the things that customers should be leveraging from organizations like AppSoc to get started with a good model, or good well vetted model.
Great, and yeah, I think certainly we agree, and it's not a one-time process. It's a continuous process, continuous compliance, but with a lot of supply chain and operational issues. Let me ask you a related question. You brought up how there are parallels to the early SaaS era to cloud deployments. I absolutely agree. Also, over the last few years, we saw DevOps rather, start to incorporate security upstream early on, and this term DevSecOps. Do you see an equivalent MLSecOps emerging as a role?
Oh, yeah, for sure. As organizations mature their data science and AI practice into a production applications, and not just experimentation, but more of integrating into their software stack, it becomes integral part of their overall security process to employ MLSecOps practices, right? So from the very beginning, as part of their AI journey, you need to start with a clean and well secured data set, right? That is going to be used for different stages of and different purpose of your AI, and make sure you have data sec operations on that data, governance, which we provide through Unity Catalog, and then you have certain types of filtering happening, and labeling the data that is ready for training data, right? And then once you have that data that is ready for training, then you move into your model training, which is also need to be now folded into your overall MLSecOps. So as part of model operations, as part of your training, you need to put security as part of your approach, which is security first approach, because it's no longer just experimentation. It is eventually going to be used into. So as we talked about earlier, as part of your model operations, one of the step may be that you want to leverage a model from something like Hugging Face. So did you scan that model as part of that model operations, which is basically going to become your model sec operations as you promote these models into production? Did you do continuous monitoring of these models? And then as you take that into operations, basically deploying this model as part of your compound AI system and agentic and functions that comes with some of these applications being built on top of these models that you're going to deploy. There again, you will need to look at your DevSecOps operationalizing and deploying and model serving process as integral part of that MLSecOps, which means did I protect my endpoints? Do I have front-end IP access list? Do I have basic authentication that is necessary to come into my data and AI platform, which is basically, do I have single sign-on, basic things like that, cybersecurity controls? Do I have multi-factor authentication? Do I have guardrails on top of my model serving endpoints, which would help me make sure my PII and PHI is not leaking out of these models? And who is authenticating? Which apps are integrating into my models? And then, if those models are calling back through agents, reaching into my data, what kind of permissions do these models have on my data? Do I have governance like Unity Catalog, which protects me my data on from these agents and only gives access to functions and agents that I anticipate and I actually plan to, and other agents are not accessing the data sets that I don't want these models to access, right? So all of this folds into that overall MLSecOps, and it is going to be, if you haven't heard or if you haven't been taking advantage of this, it's going to be just like what we heard in the past as DevSecOps.
Yeah, very interesting. And you covered a lot of things that we talk about as AI security posture management. It's a mouthful, but similar to cloud security posture management, app security posture management, but making sure all of those bases, which are somewhat security fundamentals, but there's so many new dimensions to to this stack now that maybe people forget the fundamentals. Let me ask you, sort of touched on this, but we come out of the AppSec world, and to us, one of the big concerns is your chatbot or whatever your AI tool is connecting through APIs to a data source internally, maybe your Salesforce, your Workday. So, how do you, or is there concern about having visibility to those API calls and those connections and making sure that's all secure if you have something like that in your notebooks?
Yeah, so it starts with having the principle of zero trust. In general, what you want is access on need, right? So when you are organizing your data in a unified way across all of your data sets in Databricks that happen to be Unity Catalog. And sometimes it's just not your structured data. It can be some files that these agents are trying to reach into. It can be some access to chain of models. There can be other models that this app and the model that is trying to leverage. So in those scenarios, do you have the necessary permissions, necessary access controls that you set up on your data sets, right? That comes down to the very basics of how you set up your policies and how you set up these specific access rights, and then it goes into important aspects of monitoring, which is least talked about in general. So what that means is when these apps are calling into these models, what kind of inference requests are made? Do you log that? What kind of responses were sent? So that you can actually use that information to look into your auditing, right? At some point, you may want to look at, in these responses, if there is any PHIPI being sent, so that you have visibility into that. You can also, on the side outside of security, you can also use those monitoring capabilities for optimizing and improving performance of your models. Is this the right response? Is there a human reinforcement that we can do on these responses so that next time if the same question is asked, you have better response, right? So to go back and answer your original question, overall, when we talk about these agents and these apps integrating into your overall enterprise data intelligence platform, it is incumbent upon us as the practitioners to make sure we don't forget the principles of security, making sure that we have right access controls, right monitoring in place, so that overall the expected value is coming while minimizing the risks of data exposure.
Yeah, very, very well put and interesting. I think before we wrap up, I have one question. It's a little bit different, but maybe it's back to security frameworks. There are dozens and dozens of AI laws or regulations or government frameworks in the works. A few of them, like the European AI Act, is already in place. This feels like a little bit like before the GDPR, except at a larger scale. Do are your customers concerned, or is this a benefit of DASF that you maybe can get ahead of some of these emerging regulations?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we are going to do with Databricks AI Security Framework 2.0 is that we are going to map majority of those standards and regulation requirements into the framework, especially the ones that are related to security, so that customers can leverage that to see, are we following the security requirements of these regulations? Are we following the recommendations by something like MITRE-ATLAS or High Trust? And then they can judge for themselves, or they can actually take they can get a quicker path to make sure they have those controls in place, right? But in general, the regulation is something that organizations are definitely watching and then adapting as they see fit for their own organization, how that applies for themselves based on, sometimes these regulations are based on geography, sometimes these regulations are based on an industry that they belong to, and there are digital native companies where they're leveraging completely different set of data where they may or may not be subject to these regulations. So each organization is going to vet and utilize their own legal process and governance process to see how they should be respond to. But we, as a general data and AI platform company, we provide the necessary controls and necessary compliance capabilities that our customers can leverage. And in Databricks AI Security Framework, we call those out so that customers can see how to apply those and how to make themselves in compliance with those regulatory requirements.
Yeah, very, very helpful. And I think the well-written regulations don't try to be technology specific because they can't keep up. They're more, principles. But it's the world is changing fast. So I think again, you're getting ahead of this, and companies like ours that are really, trying to build AI security as a practice are critical. Well, great, Arun. Any last thoughts? You've partnered with a lot of security companies. You have a security background. Any last thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Willy, for this, and I really appreciate our partnership, AppSoc team, and it's been a pleasure working with your organization to take a look at Databricks AI Security Framework and your own expertise, both in the cyber and your background in helping organizations in the past, and taking a leap into AI and building the necessary tooling and helping our customers and overall the community of AI practitioners with your tooling. I would close it by requesting our audience to take a look at Databricks AI Security Framework. They can just Google and it should be at the on the first page, and they can find the white paper. Take a look at that. Work with your organization as part of Databricks AI Security Framework 2.0. We are going to put full compendium out there with for the as a Google Doc, Google Sheet. They can take advantage of that to get a good starting point to look at these risks and controls, and then map that into any of these standards that they might be following, and start working on AI in a way that is going to make this journey much better than the previous journeys that we talked about. Both the journey into the cloud and the lessons that we learned from there, and combining that with some of the work that we are doing at Databricks and you are all doing, can help them get there faster, hopefully, and make this whole process smoother that is necessary for them.
Great, and I'll put in a brief plug. We offer a free discovery service, and we're integrated with the DASF framework. So if you're interested, it's a good combination. You can see your compliance fairly quickly. Well, thank you, Arun. We covered a lot of ground. We look forward to doing this again in the future. and really appreciate the partnership. It's exciting times for all of us. There's things are moving at a speed that I don't think many of us have seen in our careers before. So it's going to keep us on our toes. But thank you so much for your time, and we will talk to you again soon. And thanks to the audience.
Thank you all.